Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Great to have you listening and watching today's program. The author of the book Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923, is Christine Chatterton, our guest on the program. She's written a true historical narrative of World War I based on the letters found in the house of her husband's grandmother after her death, an intimate account of two families, four brothers from western Illinois, each facing the Great War in uniquely different ways. It's the extraordinary love story of Haidee Wilson and Maurice Chatterton, written in their own words, spanning the years 1915 until 1923. An odyssey of courage, hardship, war, death, illness, and finally survival, and a love that endured. A truly American Odyssey. Christine is a retired teacher. She's an artist, writer, poet, jewelry crafter, grandmother, a BS in Geology from Michigan State University, also a Master of Education. She's taught grades 9 through 12 with a special education department that she was head of in Fontana, California, an intro to special education instructor at Northern Arizona University. The author of Samuel's Alphabet Zoo. Next up for Christine is The Kids on Ford Street. The author of Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923, Christine Chatterton, with us on This Week in America. Hi, Christine. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity.
This is really a great, inspiring story, and I know that you've said the question you get asked most often is this really a true story? And this really is, through painstaking research. This is a true story, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's as true as I could possibly get it.
Yeah, I mentioned...
Based on the letters that we found in my husband's grandmother's house, and also the research on World War I and stories from family.
The book is called The Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923. Let's talk about how this all began. You were close to Haidee and Maurice. They pass along, and the possessions are either going to be given away or sold. And you come across this box of letters. Talk about when you came across that box and what that meant to you. That actually was motivation to really do some research and go back and tell this love story.
Well, actually, they were found in the bedroom, hidden away, and I didn't actually find them. My mother-in-law found them, but what happened was they were transcribed by a sister, and we had the letters for close to 20 years, and I had read the letters, but they didn't make much sense. And one night a few years ago, I had a dream of the whole story, what happened, and writing the story based on what was in these letters that I had read so long ago. And I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and started writing the book.
You know, this is interesting because of all of the research that went into this. And if you watch the YouTube version of this, and if you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you'll see the video icon. You go and you can watch the YouTube version, or if you're watching the television program, you'll see some photos as Christine is talking about. Talk about the photos and how these came about, because if you see these, it also goes so much further along in telling the story from a visual standpoint.
Right. The first photos are of Maurice and Haidee when they were in their 80s. I first met them after we married in 1975, and we went and saw them. I immediately fell in love with them. They were very unique people. Maurice felt like he had to tell me his whole story. And so I spent the week with them just listening to him and listening to what had happened to him and visiting with Haidee. And so the first pictures are of them that I took when in 1975 when I first met them.
Yeah, and the pictures, and again, if you go to YouTube, you can see exactly what we're talking about with the pictures, give you sort of a visual image of the people we are talking about. And you had a hand in every aspect of the book in researching and writing, and even as even the cover of the book is yours.
Yes, it is. We looked around for artifacts from that period in the house, and we found Maurice's Canadian regimental flag kind of hidden away behind a gun case, still on the pole, in perfect condition. And so we pulled it out, and I took a picture of it with the picture of Haidee from that period. She's wearing a Canadian pin, from regimental pin, from that she had been given by Maurice, and we found that pin as well. So it's been fun kind of just searching for the photo evidence and the different artifacts that we could find. We found the World War I helmet that he sent, and a number of other things.
Yes, you had so much research material, and you talk about where you actually had a murder wall set up, where basically you had all of the different family members, all the information that you would put up on the wall to try to follow the story, to follow the timeline accurately. So there is a great deal of accuracy, and I think the book really captures what life was like back during that period. And what's interesting, you talk about the first letters, and this was not necessarily a love affair from the very beginning, which Haidee was somewhat reluctant to get involved, to have an acquaintance with this young man back in the early stages of the relationship.
He was pretty wild. He ran the rails as a young man, and worked the fields around the country, and came back home every year. And so he was pretty wild. She was very straightforward and very religious, and so she was a little worried about getting involved with him, but they fell in love right away, pretty much. As far as the murder wall goes, I started out with a detailed day-by-day timeline of World War I, and then I put on top of that the dates of all the letters and what was said in all the letters. And through research online and my background research, I then put the enlistment dates of Maurice and his brothers and Haidee's brothers, and all the different facts that I could find in the research. And it all went on that wall. So it actually became kind of a guideline for writing the story and where to put the letters, and it worked out really well.
And it gave you an opportunity to go back and talk about World War I and put World War I in probably for a lot of people, a different context. Talk a little bit about that, because World War I is something we don't really talk about, and for many people, they really don't understand what happened during World War I. In reading the book, Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923, we really got a better handle on what everybody was going through, what the country was going through, what the soldiers were going through at that time.
Right, and it expresses the attitudes of the American people that in the articles that I read, and in talking to people who knew family that had been in the war. We really kind of take that war for granted. As a teacher, I know that most of my students had no idea what World War I was about. And I think most Americans really didn't understand all the things that were going on, and how different of a war it was from any war before it. So I wrote it kind of from a teacher's perspective of trying to teach why we were there as well, and why these people were there, why Maurice's brother went to Siberia, was sent to Siberia, why Maurice went to work at the Rock Island Armory. Those kind of things that tell the true story of World War I.
And you get a sense of the aftermath. We hear a lot now about soldiers coming back and being impacted for the rest of their lives. Maurice struggled with anxiety, depression from the war. He was in constant pain from the war and had a drinking issue for a while until Haidee said, it's either me or you continue drinking. You're going to have to make a choice.
Right. And we now call it, post-traumatic stress syndrome, yes. But back then they called it cowardice, and lots of times people were hung, court-martialed and hung for it, and it was really a bad time. But Maurice went through more than I think I've ever heard of anybody going through in a war, because he got the Spanish flu, he got mustard gas, he got his hand blown up, he got starved. A lot of things happened to him. And even after he came home, things happened. And that's why the story goes from 1915, when they met, to 1923, when he was finally well enough that they could get married, because he got TB as well.
Yeah, you've got a chapter, A Close Call. In 1922 was a very long year for Maurice, and a very difficult year. So the book is it's a love story, but it's the highs and it's the lows. And you really feel as you're reading, Courage of the Heart is the name of the book, Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923. Christine Chatterton is the author of the book. That's Chatterton. Her website is simply ChristineChatterton.com. The book's available at Amazon, bookventure.com/bookstore. Get information there. You can link on directly to Christine's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Talk about the children that Maurice and Haidee had. The three children. Talk about them. There's a story in the book with William that really gives you insight into the personality of Haidee, which comes across in the pages of the book, Courage of the Heart. Talk about the three children.
Well, there were two boys and one girl. My husband's father was the second oldest, and both the boys became career military and have now retired. His aunt is still alive in Galesburg, in western Illinois. And so I wanted to get this book written for them, because they're all getting up into their late 80s and 90s. And I knew it wouldn't be long. I didn't have a real long time before they wouldn't be here. And I really wanted them to have this story.
There's a story in the book, Courage of the Heart, where William, I guess this, if I recall, the late 1930s, he's in poor health, and they put him into a rest home, and he reluctantly went, didn't want to be there. And what Haidee borrowed a hearse, rolled him out, and took him home until his passing. It shows you a little bit of her character. Right.
Haidee never gave up on anything. And when her father-in-law, William, who was Maurice's father, got ill, they pretty much shuttled him out to home, and she would not have that. When she found out, her husband was the sheriff for the town, but she basically took the town, the morgue's hearse without permission, and went and got him and brought him home.
I like that. One of the great stories in the book, Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923. A couple minutes left in the program, and then we're going to close out by having Christine read a little excerpt from the book. But there were things that surprised you. You knew from the letter where you thought you were going to go, and as you were doing the research, there were a few surprises along the way, things that caught everybody off guard.
Yes. One of the major things was that Maurice's brother, Francis, had to go to Russia as part of his deployment. And Russia was not covered by the armistice because the Bolsheviks were fighting against the Russian forces and had basically by that time taken over a large part of the country, and they were supporting the Germans. And so he was sent to Russia to try and get back their arms and to save Czech troops that had been caught in the middle on the Russian train station. While he was there, he met a girl who was named Vera Lee in Vladivostok, and they fell in love. And when he asked her to marry him, he found out that she was actually an escaping Jew from a pogrom in Odessa against Jews, and they were going to Harbin in Manchuria. And no one in the family knew that. Her family's name was Lieberman. I found out about it through the research, but they hadn't told anyone. And she had 4 brothers and sisters. They all were able to escape when the Japanese took over Manchuria, were able to escape through the help of Francis and Vera, but they all had to change their name from Lieberman to Lee. So Ephraim Lieberman became Michael Lee. And but they were all able to get to Chicago. And in fact, we found out that Michael had became Franklin Roosevelt's translator, and during World War II, he was actually a spy helping Jews escape.
You know, it's amazing once you get started going down the research and you start looking into ancestry, what you can find. And you had a treasure trove of information with the letters, and you build on that. The book is Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923. Christine Chatterton, our guest on the program. In the closing minutes of the show, you've got an excerpt that it's pretty powerful you would like to read for us. Go ahead, if you would, please, and do that.
Yes, the letters that were written by Maurice are really extraordinary because he was not a college-educated man, but the education that people received back then was so profoundly strong. He quotes poetry, he quotes politicians, he speaks in Latin in his letters, and he was very fluent. And the letters are really beautiful. This one letter, this is a scene, he's describing what it was like to be on the battlefield. He said, "A battlefield at night when everything is tearing loose was truly a wonderful and terrible sight, with the sky lit up like day. I have often stood and watched, although to tell the truth, a little dugout would probably have been safer. But over there, you get used to taking chances. I can tell you some experiences when I get back. There have been times when it looked like all hell was out for a picnic. I have seen a cartoon of a soldier from the Western Front going through the infernal regions and commenting on what a tame place he had ended up in. Lots more truth in it than you have any idea. Still, it's all over, so I suppose it is time to turn our minds to the better things in life. Army life doesn't tend to better your morals a lot, in spite of what the learned divines back home have to say. When you are trained to kill, it only stands to reason that you get hard. Now don't shudder and think we are all heathens. some are, but the most are far from being so. So he talks about what it was like, and we can't hardly imagine it. You know, it's hard for us to really imagine what it would have been like to be in those trenches.
And when you read what Maurice says, I mean, you're exactly right. He could have been a college English professor with the way that he writes. It's very relatable. It's very graphic. It just you read all of the letters and more in the book Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923. Christine Chatterton is the author, Chatterton. Her website is christinechatterton.com. You can find the book at Amazon at bookventure.com in the bookstore there, and you can link on directly to Christine's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Christine, a great story. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. Thank you. It's an excellent story. A job well done.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us, where you'll find information on Christine Chatterton, author of the book Courage of the Heart, An American Odyssey, 1915 to 1923. And we're back after these messages.